Hello and welcome back to SnowRunner, y'all, and in this video we're going to be checking out some new details that have recently surfaced about Expeditions, a MudRunner game, and some of these details that you may be familiar with, and others maybe not so much. Now, this information came from Game Reactor, whose original article I will have linked in the description box down below, should you also want to check out the original source. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and dive right into the info. Also, just a real quick comment on the truck that we are driving in this video. It is the diesel-electric hybrid Edison truck, and I'll also have a link to the mod that'll allow you to use it in the description as well. Now, to dive into some of the info, now right at the very top of their article, they actually make sure to be very clear about the fact that Expeditions is a spin-off, not a sequel. So, for those of you that have been concerned that Expeditions is maybe a, that it might be marketed as a sequel per se, it is not. It is being marketed as a spin-off and is not a sequel to SnowRunner, but rather a spin-off of the SnowRunner series and the technology that the SnowRunner series uses. And thankfully, it actually looks like, even though, yes, they are devoting some resources to the development of Expeditions, it also looks like they will continue to support SnowRunner, of course, into the future and until the next major full runner game release, because here it says that they actually asked the developer that they talked to if they would intend on supporting, or rather continuing to support SnowRunner, and they said, SnowRunner is a well-loved game with a big fan base, and it's definitely our intention to continue to support that, which I think is really, really good, because even if you are going to be developing spin-off games and this, that, and the other, you really do need to focus effort and time into making sure that your core fan base does feel very supported. And so I'm glad to hear that they don't plan on letting SnowRunner go anywhere. Now, one very interesting thing that they discussed, at least one thing that was very interesting to me, was they said that there were technically 3 biomes, but rather one of them was kind of an introductory biome, whereas the other 2, mainly the more river-focused and woodland-focused biome, and then also the canyon-focused biome, were a lot more advanced and a lot more challenging. Now, they did say that there's a wide range of things that will sort of contribute to your progress in the game, but it's all going to be centered around building your base of operations to then continue to expand the range and capabilities of your expedition, which a lot of the missions in that expedition would be based on resource collection and other types of research. Now, this would involve building out your base of operations, but also doing things like hiring personnel, and those things would then allow you to access and store more vehicles and gain access to more pieces of gear. So while it does sound like a familiar concept, it does sound like a different take on a similar concept. It doesn't sound like it's going to function exactly the same way as, say, SnowRunner or MudRunner logistically, even if a lot of the concepts for gameplay that they are using are kind of from the same vein, if that makes any sense. Another thing that is really interesting to touch on, or at least something that was asked that I think is really interesting to touch on, is they did ask the developers, basically they said, would there be any crossovers between SnowRunner and Expeditions? And then the developer replied, that's not for me to say right now. Now, you can dissect that all you want, and you can say, well, they didn't say no, but you could also say, oh, that means there won't be anything because they didn't say yes. So you could really take that and dissect it endlessly. You could make a 30-minute video dissecting endlessly everything about what that statement means. But what it means, at least to me, and what I hear when they say that is, there's something maybe being considered, but A, we're not comfortable talking about it right now, or B, we may or may not have something planned, but we're currently not allowed to talk about it. So either way, we will see what that then turns out to mean. Now, something I found particularly interesting, and this, as I say it, I know that there's going to be people that are going to say, oh, you're reading into it too deeply, right? You know, you're pulling more details out of something simple than they intended. But either way, we're going to go ahead and read it anyway. And they said, or rather in one of the conversations, the developer said, so in this game, you're using technology to find particular objectives. Could be things like mineral deposits, going through lost ruins and deep dense jungles and arid rocky deserts, all in the name of science, really. But let's back up just a tad in that sentence where they said deep dense jungles. Now, we haven't seen anything official about anything related to tropical environments in this game, and I don't know if that was maybe the developer misspeaking, or if that was maybe dropping a little hint, or if it was neither of those things and I'm just reading into it too deeply, because that's also possible. But what I really do hope is I hope it's like a little grain of sand being dropped out there into sort of the reaches of the community or the reaches of the internet, because I would love to see this series give us the ability to experience this game within a tropical jungle setting. Because even until now, all of these years later, a tropical setting has been something that has only been possible through the use of modding, both in, well, rather, more than both, in Spin Tires, in MudRunner, in SnowRunner. There have been so many modders that have, well, maybe not necessarily so many, but there have been modders and mod creators, specifically in the map-making realm, that have tried to capture the essence of what it feels like to drive one of these massive trucks through a jungle environment, through a tropical environment, because that is a very realistic situation in which off-road trucking is prevalent. However, we don't really see a lot of representation for it here in the Runner series, and I think there's a couple of reasons for that. Maybe one, because jungle and tropical environments, or rather the assets that would be needed to create and represent those environments, are only really applicable to then that particular environment. Whereas, say, for example, the assets that were used to create the Scandinavian region that you're seeing on screen right now have also been used in regions like Alaska or Michigan, or, you know, they can be used a little bit more, I guess, efficiently in the game development process. Whereas, like, if you're looking to make a representation in-game of a tropical environment and you're making palm trees and sandy beaches, well, I guess you wouldn't really need that much in the case of SnowRunner, because sandy beaches are kind of already a thing. And if you're talking about making like palm trees, I don't know how intensive they would be to make. I mean, sure, you would need some new textures and objects and stuff like that, but I really do think that if they dove like head first into making a jungle environment, especially for expeditions, I think the community would love it. And I would love to hear from y'all in the comments below if a true tropical environment in this game would be one that you would enjoy driving in. Now let's switch gears though for a moment and talk about the future of the series, and not necessarily in the vein of talking about expeditions, but also talking about the sort of main series, the main Runner games, right? The next installment in the Runner series, I think, or at least I am sort of theorizing that if, and this is all speculation, but if Expeditions is releasing on both next-gen consoles and previous-gen consoles, I almost wonder if that means that, not necessarily the reason why they're releasing it on previous gen and next gen, but I almost wonder if it's creating a little bit more of a time gap for them between mainline series releases for them to develop the next game for just next gen and PC. Because as we know, the next gen consoles are obviously a lot more powerful, they're a lot more capable, and that is no shade whatsoever to anybody with a previous gen console. That's just talking about the actual limitations of the hardware. And I do think that the next mainline installment in the Runner series, even though we haven't heard anything about it yet, I would imagine that since Expeditions is coming next year, or at least is scheduled to come in next year, 2024, and we haven't heard anything about the next main Runner series game yet, I would anticipate that hopefully that game will be next gen and PC, and that is kind of the range that they will be able to develop it for, because when they do have the ability to just focus on next gen, or rather at this point, current gen consoles and PC. They really do have a much higher ceiling of which they can develop for and really take as much advantage as possible of that new hardware. And I really hope that in a way, Expeditions buys them a little bit more time to potentially do that. And at this point in the video, I would love to know where your thoughts are on Expeditions currently. Are you excited for it? Are you indifferent about it? Are you not excited for it? Are you angry about it? Are you concerned that it's going to change the series in a way that you don't like? Or are you excited that it's going to add another dimension to the series that maybe it was missing? I don't know. There is a full possible range of feelings that you can have about Expeditions, considering the fact that I have heard many different things from many different people in the community, both extremely positive and some people that have negative opinions of it as well. But once again, hope y'all enjoyed this video. Let me know what you thought of it. Let me know your thoughts and opinions, and also let me know your thoughts on Expeditions, and I will see y'all next time. Talk to y'all later, and hope y'all enjoyed.